Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket from Rev TV. You'll get every game every Sunday afternoon from around the league. Plus, NFL Sunday Ticket gives you up to 8 live games on one screen with Game Mix. You'll get that died and woke up in football heaven experience when you upgrade to NFL Sunday Ticket Deluxe, including Red Zone, the channel dedicated to every scoring play from every game. And if you add Rev TV HD to NFL Sunday Ticket Deluxe, you'll be entered to win big weekly prizes with NFL Wildcard Mania. Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket.
The fate of the constitutional referendum questioned. This as one prominent Bahamian woman says she hasn't given voting any consideration. The state minister for finance dismisses VAT doom and gloom predictions. Plus, what will your parents look like in your school uniform? We've got those stories and a whole lot more coming up tonight. I'm Vonnie Toot-End, and Read12 starts now. Topping news tonight, the lead spokesperson for government's education campaign on the constitutional referendum has acknowledged that November 6 is a tight deadline as officials seek to address the public's many concerns. Retired Supreme Court Justice Ruby Nottage told reporters today that while she's very hopeful everything will work out in time, she is very concerned that 3 months isn't long enough. Kyle Joaquin reports.
Retired Justice Ruby Nottage says the November 6th deadline is a tough one to meet for the upcoming constitutional referendum on gender equality. Justice Nottage told our news team today that while that timeline may be a bit difficult, it will not be impossible. Nottage says she's hopeful but realistic when it comes to what has to be done in such a short period of time. With debate on the constitutional amendment bills delayed until the Constitutional Commission meets with several civic organizations around the country, retired Justice Ruby Nottage says she's concerned that time could run out on them. She says despite being optimistic, less than 3 months is a short time to have the bills debated and voted upon in Parliament and successfully run an educational campaign.
The November 6th date is coming on us fast, and we still haven't had the bills move through the House, okay? And so that bothers me. It concerns me because it leaves such a short window for us to really try to open up and make clear what the bills say.
Nottage says there's always the option of asking for more time, but she fears if more time is granted, the issue may be given less priority and eventually forgotten.
There is still room. You notice how I'm a lawyer. There is still room for the argument, take your time. I've heard that. My fear there is that if we take too much time, it gets put on a back burner and it may never ever be brought forward again. We have this opportunity, the momentum is building, and I feel energized. I'm one little person, of course, but I feel energized, and I think if others can become energized, it is not a job just for one person. You can see that, but I know that we can do it if we become united.
For the questions to go to referendum, 3/4 of MPs must vote in favor. That is 29 MPs, and in the Senate, 12 out of 16 must support it. Now, a similar referendum failed in 2002 after Progressive Liberal Party MPs voted against it. Nottage says if parties don't agree this time, then the issue will go off track once again.
I am hoping that that doesn't happen. We remain a bipartisan approach. Both the leaders of the government and the opposition still remain constant in their statement that they are supporting the bills. So it isn't the same thing. And I hope that it doesn't become a political division or a divisive issue on politics. I also hope that it won't become a divisive issue on religion.
Montague MP Richard Lightbourne last week voiced concern over the revised questions, which he feared could be changed again. Nottage says after they're done meeting with groups like the Christian Council next week, the government should announce when MPs will vote on the bills. But she says this delay is extremely important.
And so this gap, this period, is a very helpful way. They have not committed the bills yet into their final form. It's a time in which we can still seek out opinions. The Christian Council is important, and we're doing that. But also, NGOs and groups that are concerned, such as women's groups or other involved organizations, they are now giving us their feedback. This is the time that we're really seeking them.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
And amid speculation over the fate of the referendum, F&M Deputy Leader Loretta Butler Turner suggested that if the referendum date needs to be pushed back in order for the government to get it right, she would support that decision. Following the announcement that the vote on those constitutional amendment bills would be delayed, she told NB12 she was initially disappointed, but she appreciates this isn't an easy undertaking.
If it even means having to push the actual referendum date back, I would rather them do it the right way and try and give it the best opportunity than to hold fast to a date that I think the government prematurely determined would be that date, given the fact that they didn't have a wide appreciation of the sort of questions that would arise from what they've presented.
The F&M deputy says the timeline will depend on how long it takes the Constitutional Commission to wrap up discussions with religious leaders and to clean up the language in those 4 bills. She said she is in no way calling for the referendum to be delayed, but she would understand if that happens.
I would support that. My position remains that if we give this the best opportunity and educate it in the best possible way, whether it fails or whether it passes, we would have done all that we could. And I think that that is the most important thing. So in that regard, I still support the government.
While she supports the government, Butler Turner said there are so many things being juggled at once and full focus is not being given to the referendum.
We dealt with VAT this past week. We have the gambling legislation coming, and we have some very heavy legislation that is going to capture the attention of the Bahamian public. People are very anxious, probably even angry about the movement of VAT and that coming into force in January 2015. So there's a lot of anxiety in the community surrounding that.
While several prominent female politicians have come out in support of gender equality, former Deputy Prime Minister Cynthia Mother Pratt said she hasn't given the referendum any consideration as yet. She was responding to a question from NB12 on whether she plans to vote in the referendum set for November 6.
I hadn't given it any consideration yet. I haven't been even listening to Parliament. I've retired and I meant that. Okay, because I am one who focuses more on the community now and my church. But I would like to encourage our people to be more civic-minded, because regardless to what happens, this is home. This is all we have.
When asked if she supports gender equality, Pratt said there should not be any form of gender discrimination in the workplace.
And this is all I'm going to say. If a woman qualifies for a position, pay her value, just as a man. Okay, if she can do the job, why not? There is no gender in who perfects the job. Okay, if it can be done by a female or a male, once they are qualified and they can do the job, why not?
Pratt's comments come as widespread debate on the referendum continues. In an effort to allay some of those fears, the Progressive Liberal Party's female parliamentarians announced the startup of a campaign in support of gender equality. Meantime, former president of the Bahamas Bar Association, Wayne Monroe, has gone on record indicating he thinks the referendum is a waste of time. In fact, he said he believes the law favors women more than men. Jasmine Brown explains.
Today, Monroe elaborated on his view of the controversial constitutional referendum, insisting that he believes not only are Bahamian women equal to Bahamian men, they also have more rights legally.
I don't think a constitutional referendum is necessary.
Monroe made his position clear. Speaking candidly, he says women in the Bahamas are treated fairly and equally. He went on to say in the legal sense, women have more rights than men, and said that's especially evident in divorce court.
Bahamian women have more rights than men, though. And that's, they were given when men, some of them when only men could vote. And it might have been patronizing to say you are weaker, so we need to protect you, and so you have a bunch of laws that prefer women. you have no laws that prefer men. People have to understand in some countries girls can't go to school because they are girls in some Islamic states. We don't have that here. In some states, only a husband can give a decree of divorce. A wife can't. We don't have that here. The last law that we had that benefited men was when women, or when you married, all of your property became your husband's. We did away with that in 1889. So women have rights superior to men and given to them by male parliaments, maybe patronizing to say you need this protection.
The government tabled 4 bills to amend the Constitution last month. Government officials say the bills will institute full equality between men and women in matters of citizenship and will eliminate discrimination in the Bahamas based on sex. Monroe disagrees.
It's sold as equal rights for women, but no woman gets any right from any of the 4 bills, none. But it's continued to be sold as that, and I continue to challenge somebody to point to one right.
Earlier this month, DNA leader Branville McCartney cautioned on the word gender, saying it's too broad and could open the door for gay marriage if coupled with a simple amendment. But human rights activist Aaron Green has said the LGBT community believes it has nothing to do with same-sex marriage. And the fact that gay marriage is being thrown into the conversation is nothing more than a political smokescreen. Monroe calls the same-sex marriage talk nothing more than a red herring.
The fact of the matter is that we have to determine whether the government needs to spend $2, $3, $4 million to have a referendum to bring about results that could be done by ordinary legislation and is safer done by ordinary legislation.
The referendum is slated for November 6th. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Brown.